Wreaths can come in any shape, color, material, and style you can imagine, and making one can be a fun project for any occasion. They also make fantastic gifts, which is what I'm doing with this one. To make any wreath, you'll need a wreath form, chenille stems or pipe cleaners that blend well with your material, ribbon, burlap, fabric, or mesh, and any accessories you plan on adding. I'm using flowers. You'll also need scissors, and since I'm adding flowers, I'll be needing these wire cutters and some floral wire. The first step is to attach the pipe cleaners to the wreath form. The wreath form is made up of 4 rings, and all of them are connected by a number of support wires evenly spaced around the ring. The number of these bars depends on the size of the wreath form you're using. For this type of wreath, I'm going to attach 4 pipe cleaners per support bar, 1 for every ring.
What is it recording?
Yes.
It's like a good idea.
Are you serious right now? I mean,
ow!
You're not even using the camera. You just have to touch it, and you become the world's worst cameraman.
I don't become anything. I just was. Beforehand.
I don't understand how.
My superpower. Whatever.
All you need to do for the middle rings is bend the pipe cleaner in half and secure it crossways across the ring and the support bar.
Her mashed potatoes are so good that I would wait for her to get home.
The outer ring is a little bit more complicated. You still need to bend the pipe cleaner in half and insert it crossways across the ring and the support bar, but you also need to take an extra step to make sure it won't just slide back and forth along the ring from that support bar to the other. Bend one of the stems over the support bar on the opposite side of the ring to make sure it's going to stay in place. For both placements, twist it twice over itself to make sure it won't come undone.
You know that song?
No. You were off key.
Yes, I was very off key because I suck.
What's the name of this? I know this song.
Nah, 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 by My Chemical Romance. Ow! That was my foot!
Oh my gosh.
The phone is undamaged, but my toe is not.
I'm leaving that in. Yeah, I've just nicknamed you Multiface on the oops.
Multiface. What was I gonna call myself? What did I...
It was according to whatever mask you were wearing.
Just call me Jack.
What?
Jack.
No, because my name's Jax.
For Jack of all trades.
Yeah, but my name's Jax.
Yeah.
Jack and Jax. No. Now that the pipe cleaners are secured, it's time to add the burlap. I'm doing a loose bubble technique, and to get it started I need to hide the end of the ribbon so it doesn't poke out obviously. So I'm turning the end of the ribbon to face the direction I want the bubble to go into and tie it off there with 2 twists of the pipe cleaner. To make that bubble, move on to the next support bar and create a poof with the burlap that arches from your starting point to the next point. Bunch the burlap together where you want the bubble to end and secure it with 2 twists of the pipe cleaner. Be careful not to get tangled with all the other pipe cleaners sticking out from the form like I am. Alright, now let's keep going and try to keep the bubbles consistent in size.
Oh my gosh, I suck!
Changing to the next row isn't that hard because you're really just working in a spiral going outwards. But I wanted to zoom in again to show you why I had the beginning facing inwards instead of out. You can see nothing's really covering the outside of that first bubble. The bubble itself and the one you're adding on the ring outside of it will conceal it for you. Depending on the size of the wreath form and the material you're using, chances are you'll run out. Using the same technique you used to start it, slip the end of the burlap under the loop and cut it short so there isn't any extra hanging out, then secure it in place. Now start the next roll on the same wire you ended on and secure it with 2 twists. I keep saying 2 twists because of this. More than 2, and the wire inside the stem would build up way too much to put more than 1 piece of ribbon on. Bring the bubbles to the last available pipe cleaner to make the wreath look full. Now flip the wreath up and pull the burlap through the rings and some of the inner bubbles of burlap. Find a place where you can secure it without it looking too obvious, loop it under, and tie it in. Good enough.
Good enough. Good enough.
Now that the burlap is on, it's finally time to decorate. These are the flowers I picked out for this weird springtime rustic thing I was going for. To make things easier, I went through and cut off all the large stems and bulk with wire cutters, leaving more manageable lengths of flowers to work with later. I did still end up cutting them down a lot more later on to make them fit into the burlap better, but it was 10 times easier with these original cuts to figure out what I wanted to do. In the end, I decided I didn't want the white flowers. Mostly what I'm doing now is trying to figure out where I want these flowers to go, since I only have a vague idea of what I'm doing. The colors need to flow in a certain way to complement each other, and I have my own personal sense of style for making these things. One thing I was absolutely sure about when I got started laying the flowers down was that I wanted those daffodils to be an offset accent at the bottom right of the wreath, which is just a personal favorite look of mine. Okay, here's my concept. I realized a little bit too late that I was working almost off camera, but basically what I'm doing is trimming the daffodils down to a better size so the wreath will sit flush to any surface without warping their placement. Then I bent down all of the pipe cleaners still sticking up out of the wreath and wrapped them around in the back to get them out of view and make room for the floral wire. Alright, I switched over to a more close-up view for this. What I'm doing is wrapping the wire around the shortened daffodil stem to make it easier to manipulate. Now I'm guiding the flower into the rings of the wreath form behind the bubbles of burlap. The stem of the daffodil is still a little bit too long, but now that I've got the floral wire holding it secured, I don't need it anymore. So I'm just going to trim that off. Be careful not to cut the wire you've attached separately because we're going to use that link later. Sorry, I'm struggling to work and keep it all in the frame. I'm looping it around anything I can to secure the stem in place to make sure it's not going to slip or distort over time. Once that wire is secured underneath, pull the remaining length of wire back through the wreath form. Since the wires inside the daffodil didn't run high up enough to manipulate which way the flower would tilt off of the stem, I'm going to wrap the remaining wire around it as high as I can so that I can direct which way the actual flower faces. Otherwise, the daffodils will smash into each other and look messy and careless. I got annoyed pretty quickly with trying to tie in the flowers with all those loose flowers still there, so I'm just carefully taking those off and trying my best to leave them in the order that they were sitting in. This will give me free rein to flip the wreath around as much as I need to. Before going on anymore, I'm going to go ahead and fold down all of the pipe cleaners since I'm not really going to need them to hold any more ribbon or flowers. You can see I'm gathering them all up and bunching them into the middle. That's because if I try to split them off and tie them around the outside of the wreath form, the burlap would pull apart and leave a big open gap in the middle. You always want to work against whatever way the material is leaning, just to make sure there are no gaps or weird shaped loops hanging out. Just like I did with the floral wire holding the daffodils, I'm wrapping the pipe cleaners anywhere I can just to make sure the wreath sits flush against whatever surface it's getting hung up on. Be careful about the ends of those things too. The sharp metal cuts at the very end of those pipe cleaners will scratch up whatever surface you're working on. So I found a big, weird, open loop while I was fixing the pipe cleaners. Unfortunately, with something as limp as burlap ribbon, that's probably going to happen a lot. Thankfully, there's an easy fix for it. Before you tie all of the pipe cleaners into the wreath form, take one of them and loop it into part of the burlap. This will secure the inside of the bubble flush to the form and no one will ever know.
Did you just say I caught my first Pokemon?
I think so.
Oh, he said Pokemon.
On my way to becoming the #1
I think at this point I decided that 4 daffodils was too bulky. And then when I started to put the flowers I originally moved back onto the wreath, without that 4th daffodil and the accent piece to balance everything else I'd laid down out, it was too top heavy. So I started to thin everything out using my original concept as a guide for color flow. I cut away some of the flowers that were creating too much bulk and removed most of the greenery, strategically placing it back in where I wanted it to go and not where the uncut stems dictated. It might seem like a lot more work than what it was worth, but this actually made it 1,000 times easier to control my own design. So this is what I'm left with. It's not that different from my original concept. Now I've got to move the flowers again off the wreath so I can add them back on one by one. Since I don't have to do anything fancy with the rest of the flowers like I did with the daffodils, I don't need the entire wire. I'm going to cut these wires in half and use those to secure everything in. Fold it over once and push it in over the stem, making sure it's going around one of those rings as well. Then just twist it off in the back. Even now as I'm tying the flowers in, I'm thinning it all out to make it easier to tie into the wreath and also make it look cleaner. For the greenery, I'm cutting it down a little bit smaller since it's so small already. The reason I'm using 2 wires instead of just cutting the extra length off is to give it a little bit more of a secure hold to the wreath form. It's less likely to be pulled out by accident if it's tied on at an angle in 2 separate pieces. I totally didn't mean to move the wreath off camera for this part, but here we are. So what I'm doing is wrapping the loose wire around the daffodils since I'm not going to need them anymore. This will help hold it all in place and keep it from bending anymore. I broke my tripod. And then I broke it more. I'm almost done. Now all that's left to do is to make something to hang the wreath by. Basically, this is just a loop with 4 wires coming out of it, and I'm wrapping them around anything I can to make sure it stays in place. This, out of everything else, has to be absolutely secure because it's going to hold the entire weight of the wreath.
Just like no fear. Are you really trying to do that again, Aunt Michelle?
No, I'm trying to watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Yeah.
Bruh.
And that's it! As you can see, I decided against adding a string of flowers to the other side of the daffodils. I saw it after I had put the first half on and decided it looked more like my friend this way. Thanks for watching! If you made it through to the end of this video and didn't want to die, please like and subscribe. I've got lots more projects coming soon.